It's time for the whole 9 yards. Hello, everyone. I'm Ralph Ventre here to bring you the whole 9 yards on Week 5 on the gridiron. For the first time this season, fewer than half of the NEC teams will be in action this week. Only 3 of 7 programs will take to the gridiron in Week 5. Bryant, Duquesne, Robert Morris, and Sacred Heart are all idle. They'll return to action on October 4th. But now, let's get to work with the 3 teams that are in action. It's the No Huddle Preview. Our first featured matchup will be up in New Britain, Connecticut. Central Connecticut will take on a CAA member for the 3rd time in the season's first 5 weeks. The Blue Devils will host the Rhody Rams at a Root Field. The head coaches on both sidelines on Saturday evening are in their first year with their respective program. We told you about Pete Rosamondo, how the Central head coach was the head man at Division II New Haven last year. Meanwhile, Rhode Island's Jim Fleming, he was an assistant at FBS member Central Florida last season. And yes, NEC fans, it's the same Jim Fleming who was at Sacred Heart at the turn of the millennium, leading the Pioneers to a 21-1 mark during that time. But enough about history and more on Saturday's game. Rhode Island will be in search of its first win. The Rams suffered lopsided losses at FBS member Marshall and nationally ranked Fordham before falling 37-20 against Albany. Central has also lost 3 in a row, and both teams jumped out to early double-digit leads in Week 4 before suffering losses. The key in this one should be who can run the ball better. Rhode Island is averaging only 2.5 yards per carry this season, while allowing opponents to gain 7 yards per clip. The Blue Devils will benefit if running back Rob Holloman can break a few big ones. Moving down the docket to game number 2, Wagner will be the 3rd NEC team to face Lafayette this season. The Seahawks will continue their season-opening 4-game road swing in Easton, Pennsylvania. Lafayette is 1-1 against NEC teams this month, falling at Sacred Heart before handling Robert Morris at home. Wagner, which has dropped 2 in a row, is coming off a bye week as head coach Walt Hamline was busy walking his daughter Kelly down the aisle. Now it's back to the normal Saturday routine for Hamline and his Seahawks. One thing Wagner has done well this season is stop the run. In 3 road games, the Seahawks are allowing only 2.7 yards per rush. Stopping Ross Sherman and making Lafayette's offense one-dimensional is likely a recipe for success. At least it was for Sacred Heart back in Week 3 against Lafayette. We'll see what the Seahawks and Leopards have in store this Saturday night in Easton. And the 3rd and final matchup featuring an NEC team in Week 5 takes us out to Loretto, Pennsylvania. After facing Fordham, James Madison, and Youngstown State all on the road, the Red Flash will certainly be happy to play Saturday's game within the friendly confines of the Pine Bowl. Looking for its 2nd win of the season, St. Francis will welcome in non-Division I opponent Virginia University of Lynchburg. The game will serve as a final tune-up for the Red Flash, who have a bye in Week 6 before opening Northeast Conference play at Wagner on October 11th. As for the game plan on Saturday, the Flash will likely employ its ground and pound attack led by Kahari Dixon. Dixon, who leads the entire NCAA in rushing, has proven pretty tough to tackle this year. Fordham couldn't stop him. He gained 216 yards on the ground at James Madison and another 151 at Youngstown. So, Virginia Lynchburg, you've been warned. I'm a bit out of breath, so please give me a Twitter timeout. This week's featured tweet comes from Michael Caputo. A very astute observation here by Michael, and Michael just isn't your average NEC fan. In fact, he is the NEC's single-season receiving record holder. Caputo, back in his playing days for St. Francis U, went for 1,433 yards back in 2005. Although we're only 4 weeks into the season, it's understandable that Caputo's getting a little nervous, as Chris King is on pace to set the all-time NEC single-season receiving mark. Now, let's study some X's and O's, taking an in-depth look at one player on the offensive side of the ball and another on the defensive side. First, we'll start offensively with the Duquesne Dukes. We mentioned in the Twitter Timeout segment how Chris King is on pace to possibly set the Northeast Conference single-season receiving record. Sophomore signal caller Dylan Beekle currently ranks second amongst NCAA FCS leaders in pass yards with 1,231. The NEC record is 3,321, set by Wagner's John Ciara early in the 2000s. Beekle, who is averaging more than 307 pass yards per game, is on pace to set this record. And it's not like he hasn't done it against prime competition. Beekle has thrown for over 300 yards in 3 of the season's first 4 games, including road games at FBS member Buffalo and nationally ranked Youngstown State. For the second half of our X's and O's segment, we turn the spotlight to Staten Island, Wagner College. Veteran linebacker Trevor Loveland has been out since week 2, but that has given an opportunity to Massachusetts native Greg Hilliard to step up. And so far, the 6'3" linebacker has answered the bell. Hilliard, who has slipped into his starting outside linebacker spot for the Seahawks, has 14 tackles already this season, including 3.5 hits for loss. He's one reason why the Seahawks are holding opponents to fewer than 300 yards per game, and that Wagner boasts a stout run defense, which is limiting opposing ball carriers to fewer than 90 yards per outing. Hats off to Greg Hilliard for stepping up when the Seahawks needed him most. So there you have it. It's a short schedule for Week 5 on the gridiron, but it should be an eventful one nonetheless. You can watch 2 of the 3 games live on Front Row. Central against Rhode Island at 4, and then later in the evening, it's the Red Flash hosting Virginia Lynchburg. I'm Ralph Ventre, and those were the whole 9 yards on Week 5 in NEC Football. Until next time, folks. Oh, and don't forget, enjoy the games.